Good evening. Good evening. It is Thursday, December 9th, 2021. Welcome to Keeping It Real Conversations with Sunshine. I am your host, Camila, aka Sunshine. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Spotify, GrooveRadioDetroit.com, YouTube. If you have not subscribed, please do so. It is the name of the show. I believe in 6 degrees of separation. You are one person away, one advice away, one help away, or where you need to be in your destiny. And it's been proven over and over again. Again, I'm grateful that I am here to be able to share with you guys, to connect you to some people you might have never heard of. But I get excited every time I am able to come on and talk to you guys, share the information that I know, the information things that I have been privy to. I'm just glad to be able to talk to whoever has ability to come on and just tell their story, their background stories, how they're doing right now, if they have products coming out, new music, whatever it is, I'm here for it all. Whether we're talking about healing or we're talking about grief, whatever it is, I'm here for it all. Again, thank you guys. Thank you so much again for rocking with us. It has been a whole year since we started this show. I am so excited to really be going forth and doing what I love to do. And that's connecting people. Again, like we said all week, this is a season where a lot of people are depressed, going through grief. A lot of people have lost their lives, whether it's natural, whether it's the hands of someone else. Please reach out to them. Please say a special prayer for them. We have known of, the Oxford High School. We have heard about Nate Cannon's losing his son on Sunday. We have heard so many things locally and in the news of people losing their lives. And this is that season for love to share and all of these things. And no one wants to lose a loved one, but at this time, especially during this season, again, reach out to them, send them a message, call them, just pray for them. You never know, that prayer could really touch someone right now. We're dealing with a lot of suicide rates, mental illness, a lot of these things. So again, please be prayerful. Please do what you can. Again, I'm showing love to all those who have graced this platform. It's been over 100 episodes in a year's time. From I can't even begin to name so many people that have actually came on and shared their stories. I had one yesterday that had me in tears. I'm just thinking about what the interactions that I had with her and my model friends really did for my confidence. Again, if you didn't come on live yesterday, please go back and watch Latricia Johnson conversation yesterday. It was awesome, well thought out conversation that we had about really, even if you're not into modeling, I recommend that every woman at least once try out for one or be a part of a fashion show. It does wonders for your confidence. Again, I'm just waiting for my guest to come on this evening, and I'm so excited about him because I always tell you how I met the person, and with him, I never met him in person, but I saw clips of him on TikTok. And come to find out, he has graced the city of Detroit with his gift. And so I needed to know, who is he? And I reached out immediately after watching several YouTube videos of him, several TikTok videos of him, and I got excited. If you know me, you know I love music, you know I love musicians, and he can really play. And so I'm just excited to be able to talk with him. So we'll be back shortly.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
I wonder why. Hold on.
There think I can see you now.
My apologies. I didn't see where it said Eastern Standard Time. And so I was preparing to be here in an hour.
Oh man.
And so, but I'm glad you emailed. So hopefully I'm not too late.
No, you're not. I usually figure like somebody might, be running a little ass. Say, okay, let me email or text them.
No, I
Um,
appreciate it.
no problem. So welcome to the show, Dan. How are you?
I'm alive.
That's a good one. Yeah. So I let people know how I know the person. So while you wasn't here yet, I was letting them know how I came across your name. So I never met you in person, but however, when I saw your videos on TikTok, that's how I saw you. It was TikTok, Instagram, and from there I went to YouTube. So when I saw you, I believe my first one was you playing the organ. And I said to myself, oh my God, who is this? And so I'm not even sure how I'm going through videos. And there was a video of you playing the guitar, bass. Is it bass, guitar? Which one is it?
Guitar.
You were at a funeral of one of Detroit's finest red funeral here in Detroit.
My very good friend, Red Edwards.
You were here playing for his funeral. And I said, oh my God, he has been in Detroit. Who is he? And so I reached out immediately, was like, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. Who, what in the world, what earth, what planet did you come from?
Well, this planet. Before we get further, so you talked about Red. Have you heard his album, Hymn Chronicles?
Yes.
So that's me playing guitar on that album. And
Wow.
I've known Red for I'm trying to think of how long. I met Red, I think it would have been 2005, 2006. We were both hired by, I don't remember which artist hired us first, Brent Jones and Byron Cage. And it was my first, like, professional experience beyond like playing for local artists and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I'm sure Red had already done plenty. Um, and him and I, did stuff together and kept in connection for many years after that. Definitely a pillar of the Detroit gospel music community for many years. One of those things that if you're not from the area, you might never have heard of him, and in which case you're missing out. But I grew up across the pond in Madison, Wisconsin, which is, right across Lake Michigan from Detroit, pretty much, and grew up with a combination of Lutheran, Catholic, and Church of God in Christ upbringing. And then with a family that is musical, my mom taught elementary school music and taught piano lessons, and then was over like the children's choir at her church, was a Lutheran church. And my dad, while not a musician, was one of those dads that's just a big music fan with the huge record collection and went to every live music, whether it was whether it was Bob Dylan or Earth, Wind and Fire, or if somebody was playing that he liked, he was at every live music event. So I got all different kinds of music and all different kinds of church from all different directions. And actually, Detroit holds a place in my heart, as well as my not career, but my growth as a musician. Because the first time I ever went to Gospel Music Workshop of America was when it was in Detroit in 2002, and that was like, so every good musician, in my opinion, has a point, sometimes several points within the course of their career or their musical evolution, where they realize that they're not as good as they think they are.
Yeah. Okay.
And you get your ass kicked, and you have a humbling experience. And I was, in high school in Wisconsin, and I had family in Chicago that were involved in the Chicago music scene. I was playing for the gospel choirs here. I was playing for some local bands here. I was working with Clyde Stubblefield, who was a very famous drummer that lived here. And I just thought that like I was it. And it was just a matter of the right person discovering me, and I was going to be rich and famous as a musician because I was, I was a young big fish in a small pond, and I went to GMWA, Detroit, 2002, and I would have been like 16 maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think exactly how old I would have been. 16, 17, somewhere around there. And there were 12-year-olds that could play circles around me everywhere. And I went there with a stack of business cards because I'm like, I'm gonna give one to Fred Hammond, I'm gonna give one to Kirk Franklin, I'm gonna give one to Dietrich Haddon, I'm gonna give one to everybody. And then I got there and I was like, oh, so I'm nobody. Like, this is, and so that was, I believe that's the last time it's been in Detroit. And which was 20 years ago. And I want to say the Coho Center. Am I remembering correctly? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember. I can picture it. I don't remember all the names and the streets, but I can picture. I have some very vivid mental pictures because that was a very important turning point in my growth as a musician. And then of course I've been back to Detroit multiple times for Red and for other things. And like you said, like you pointed out, for Red's funeral, which he's very missed.
Absolutely. And there's this, for whatever reason, there's this stereotype, and like I said, this is keeping it real conversations, okay? Mm-hmm. So we assume that white people or Caucasian people don't have rhythm, and definitely not being able to go to a quote unquote Kojic church. And not only did you play chords, like, wait, hold on, time out, what just happened? I'm totally confused here. How is this happening? He's in a service on the organ, going to church, like literally. And then I see him, I think, I can't remember what song you guys were playing at Red's funeral. You put some dun 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 dun.
We're doing Hold to His Hand, but that's from Hymn Chronicles. I wish I could take the credit for that, but that's the same thing I played on the album, and I'm pretty sure that Red specifically said he sent me the, because I don't know how familiar you are with studio work, but you send the files and it has like a raw version of what you want, and then you do. And he sent me the files, and I'm pretty sure that wasn't I didn't come up with that. I'm pretty sure Red said, can you play, what is that, Roller Coaster, over this? And I said, sure. I think he gets the credit for that and not me. But it's definitely true that I don't have rhythm in terms of I can't dance and I can't play drums. And I've tried to do both very extensively, and I don't have the right rhythm in my feet. I can play the organ pedals with my feet. I can play the guitar pedals with my feet. But I definitely, there's some areas where it is true that I do not have rhythm. But yeah, I was very blessed to grow up with myriad different musical church cultures. And honestly, what kind of made me fall in love with gospel music was, so when I was in middle school, and I went to what they would politically correct call inner city schools, where there were generally fewer white kids than non-white kids. Okay. And my middle school, I was one of it was much smaller, and it was mostly black, and I was one of the very few white kids that went to this school. And by this point in time, by sixth grade, I knew that music was my favorite thing to do, and I wanted to be involved in music. And somebody had told me that when you get to middle school, they'll have bands there that you can join. You can be in the jazz band, or you can be in the marching band, or you can be whatever. So I went to everybody involved in that school, and I said, I want to be in the band. Where's the band? And they're like, well, there's not really any band. Like, you can play the trumpet or something in the but there's no like band. And the only band program that was even affiliated with the school was something called Arts Our Prevention. And that was ran by a civil rights leader named Joe McLean, who, if you go and actually you look at, if you want to check out my show, Music Politics, we did a whole episode where our guest was Joe McLean. Just type in Music Politics, MUSIPOLITIX. I think I spelled it correctly. We did a whole episode with him because he was an original civil rights leader, worked with Dr. King and everything like that. But what he was doing in the 90s was he had a program called Arts Our Prevention that was designed to keep kids out of trouble by teaching them music and drama and theater and the arts. And that program wasn't affiliated with the school, but they sometimes used the school's facilities. They sometimes used the classrooms and the gymnasium and whatnot. And so one of the music teachers said, well, why don't you come when Mr. McLean's here doing Arts Our Prevention? And that's probably the closest thing we have to what it is that you're trying to find. And so I joined Arts Our Prevention, and then maybe some months later, maybe a year later, I'm not exactly how sure thereafter, we were playing at like a community picnic. I think it was probably like a Juneteenth picnic or something like that, some Black event. And there were some girls there from the UW Gospel Choir, University of Wisconsin Gospel Choir. And the University of Wisconsin Gospel Choir didn't have any musicians. And they said, look at these kids, they can play. Like, why don't we hire them to be the musicians for the gospel choir? So they hired Arts Our Prevention to be the musicians for the University of Wisconsin Gospel Choir. And even though I was the only white kid, only one of us had ever played in church before, or at least in that kind of church. Because like I played in my mom's Lutheran church, and that was pretty much the only experience I had doing music in church. I'd been to some Black churches before, but I hadn't played there. And our drummer had played in a Baptist church, but the rest of us, we'd all done music through school and through Arts Our Prevention, but never in church. But we got to hang out with college girls. And so for a bunch of middle school boys, that was just like, oh my God. So we joined up, and they thought we were so cute. And so for their first, like, we played for them at their little events that they had throughout the school year, but then for their big winter concert, they hired real musicians. They hired a bunch of Chicago OGs, Richard Gibbs, Joey Wolfhawk. I'm trying to think of who else was that. I think later on they hired Keelan Jones, who's a drummer from Waukegan. I don't remember who they had the first time around. I think this was before the Calvin Rogers era of Chicago gospel, but they hired a bunch of like legendary Chicago musicians to play for their Christmas concert. But they invited us, the kids, like, just to come and hang out. And I just remember being there, and I'd been in Church of God in Christ. I'd been in the Baptist church, and I'd been in some other predominantly Black churches, but this is the first time I'd seen full on gospel choir with a professional band, and it was amazing. And I just was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And so that at that point is when I started seeking out the people that I knew that were involved in Black churches and being like, I want to be involved in this. I want to play for this. I want to learn this type of music. And it just so happened that a girl that was in the Arts Our Prevention program, her uncle was a pastor in the Church of God in Christ who was opening a church location in my area. And she's like, well, we need musicians. And I was like, well, I'm not ready to play for a whole church service by myself. She's like, no, my uncle and his brothers, they're all musicians. They'll teach you, So it just, I just happened to be at several points throughout my childhood in the right place
at the right time
to learn gospel music from people, And so through that, I grew up in it because, again, I was telling somebody the other day, I mean, I've technically been a part of the Church of God in Christ since I was like 12 years old, And so when you talk about white people versus Black people, which I know was what you started at the beginning, is there really, is there a difference between a white kid that grows up in a Church of God in Christ and learns that versus a Black kid, or, grows up in gospel music? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure with all music, there's some degree of like some people just have a natural aptitude where you're naturally born with, like, some people just are born with no musical ability and they can try to learn an instrument and they can't learn it. But I don't know. I mean, I think when it comes to the cultural side of things, I think it just comes in terms of what you're immersed in and what you grew up with. And I was just so lucky and so blessed that I got to grow up around such a diverse, and I don't mean that racially and besides just racially, group of church cultures and music styles. And again, I got to grow up with everything from musical theater to church music to R&B to blues. And I mean, I got to grow up around all of it, and it made me the musician that I am.
Is there any artist or a style of music that you prefer?
I mean, the easy answer is to say gospel music, solely because I believe gospel music incorporates all other music.
Mhm.
Like, if you listen to it, gospel will have reggae in it, gospel will have blues in it, gospel will have funk in it, gospel will have jazz in it. And you can put out a gospel album and it literally have every other genre of music in it, because they all came from, I mean, most music came from gospel music, and but I feel like that's kind of a cheater answer, because I mean, in saying that, it's still a bunch of different genres of music. If I could pick one, like, genre of music outside of gospel that I really loved playing, it would be old school funk. I would love to do like a James Brown, George Clinton, that kind of funk music, or even getting into the early 80s Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis type of thing. Just something just real groove oriented. There aren't a million changes, there's not a million complicated things. You play the groove, you stick to the groove, you go to the bridge when they say go to the bridge, and you can do that all night.
Wow. Like I said, I want everybody to, I mean, follow you. And I love music. I love musicians. I can't play a lick, but I can sing. And I was very impressed to the point where I kept playing certain songs over and over again to be like, am I really hearing and seeing what I'm looking at, what I'm hearing? Because it was really truly amazing to watch. And to at Red's funeral, there was I think you were playing Total Praise, and I couldn't get through the whole song because I was gone just by hearing you bring the song to life outside of them singing it.
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So again, I was like, I'm excited. I really want to talk to him because again, I had no idea that you had a connection to Detroit for one. I didn't know where you were from, first of all, because again, my first encounter was on a TikTok. So I had no idea who you were or where you were from.
I mean, by the way, we kind of glossed over it before, but thank you for pointing that out, because I've been trying very hard to work on my social media presence, and I'm pretty new to TikTok. And a lot of times when it takes a lot of time and effort, as you know, you have a show, to post stuff and to be consistent with social media content. And I've been pretty discouraged about my TikTok in terms of like, okay, like, is this even worth doing? Like, are people even out? You get some views and you get some likes and you get some comments, but like at the end of the day, if it doesn't translate to anything beyond that, it just kind of feels like shouting into a vacuum sometimes. So you're the first person that has reached out to me and said that the content I posted on TikTok has reached them beyond just scrolling past it and saying, like, that's cute. So that's encouragement for me to keep going on that. I Red's funeral was very emotional for all of us that were there. I don't know how much you know about the other musicians that were there. So do you know Quadria Salters?
Mm-hmm.
So Quad, interestingly enough, Quad is now the main keyboard player for Ricky Dillard and New G. But Quad and I have known each other almost as long as I knew Red, because we all played together at a church called Ebenezer AME in Washington, D.C., where my wife is from D.C. I used to live in Virginia. I have, some roots in the D.C. area as well. And we all played together at this church, which is one of the biggest churches in DC. It's a huge church, 40,000 members. And at the time, minister music, there was Byron Cage. Assistant ministers of music were Brent Jones, Ernest Pugh, Keith Williams, and one other. And now I think Ricky is there. And it's just one of those, star-studded mega churches. And we were all playing there. And I remember Byron was the one that hired Quad. And at the time, Quad was this young kid from Memphis. And he could play, he could do all this amazing stuff, but he wasn't like a grounded musician yet. And so I just remember everybody being like, man, that young kid's too busy. I mean, he can't, he's all over the place. And Red took him under his wing. Because the thing about Red is Red wasn't like the guy that could execute. Like if you wanted, I did a couple of tours with Red where Red was not the right choice for that tour, because Red's not the guy that can play the part exactly like the record every time. Red did things Red's way and he played things Red's way. But if you wanted somebody that could jump on organ and just absolutely change the atmosphere, that was Red every time. And that was the thing the Quad was missing, is he didn't have that oily, greasy, just crushed play a hymn and just wreck the church, not doing anything fancy, but just doing the right thing at the right time with substance. That was Red's gift. And Red took Quad under his wing and taught him that, which is a big part of what made Quad the musician he is today. So Red and Quad became like this. And then we all did stuff together from there. We did stuff with Brent, with Byron, with GMWA. And so it was very much a close connection between a lot of us that were there with them, with just a lot of other musicians that were in that same group of brothers. Like I know Kevin Stansel, Andre Jones, Abraham Baker, Anthony Tyler, the drummer. I can't remember everybody's name. We even have a group chat on Facebook for all these guys that it would be the same group of guys that would wind up in these same places doing these same gigs. And Red was kind of the anchor of that. So in losing him, it was very emotional for all of us. And especially, like I said, him and Quad were just they would go and do all kinds of things together besides just music. They would go in to get in all kinds of trouble together, and so it was really, really hard for Quad losing Red. And then the rest of us were close to both of them and just trying to, hold each other up and keep each other together. So that whole 2-day celebration was kind of a blur to me in terms of just, you need to drive into Detroit, keep it together enough to play the concert and the service, and then, drive back home. But I'm glad I did. It's funny because the last time I went to see Red, before he passed, was for his CD release. And there was, it was a similar thing where I drove to Detroit. I got there were some headaches, and I was like, I don't know if I don't know if this is worth doing again, because it was just, there was so much, involved in doing it. And in hindsight, I'm really glad that I did. And I wish I would have gone to see him more. Because like you said, he was just a huge part of that brotherhood of musicians that existed in Detroit and outside of Detroit.
Absolutely. And when I was younger, there was Chris Jones, and Red was playing for Chris before Chris Jones passed away. And so I wanted to join Chris Jones Word of Praise, but I never got a chance to. But I was there around them while Red was playing the music and things of that nature. So there's so many musicians in the city of Detroit.
Well, we just lost Volley Craig. Yes. The last time I saw him was at Red's funeral. For those who don't know, Volley Craig was a another just pillar of the Detroit music scene, probably best known as Aretha Franklin's music. Not I don't think he was her music director, but a bass player for many, many years. And yeah, we've lost a lot of key people in the music industry over the last couple of years. It's definitely been tough.
Yeah. So again, just to let you know, just for encouragement, again, keep pushing. It You have no idea who's watching, who's liking, sharing. Same thing here. I have no idea, but again, it came across me, and I was totally blown away. And I said, only thing on TikTok, you can't reach out to the person, like inbox them. So I had to look at your information, go to Instagram
I thought
to.
you could. I thought there was a way to inbox people. I don't know. I don't check mine, so
Well, the only way you can inbox on TikTok is if you guys are already friends.
oh yeah,
So
I
if
don't.
I don't know you and we're not friends, I can't inbox you.
Gotcha.
So I have to find your information, go to your Instagram, and that's how we conversed.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for anybody, if anybody watching, I'm very easy to find. Actually, the easiest thing to do, my handle on all social media is dspiffy, D as in Dan, and then Spiffy, Spiffy. And if you go to dspiffy.com, you are directed everywhere else, both my show and podcast we were talking about earlier, Music Politics, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, email, any kind of way that you want to get in touch with me. And I certainly don't mind if anybody has a reason to reach out to me for any reason, whether you have a question about something, you need, organ or guitar tracks for something, or, I mean, worst case scenario is if I'm in a hurry, I might send back a pretty short reply, but if I see it, I'll reply.
So where did you get the nickname Spiffy?
That's a funny story. It's actually, so when I was in middle school, and I remember I told you earlier that I was like one of like maybe 2 or 3 white kids in a pretty much mostly black school. And I had read some book, and me and a friend of mine who went to a different school had both read the same book, and the book used a lot of older vernacular. I don't remember what it was. It was a novel of some kind. And it used words like spiffy and nifty and neato and stuff like that. And me and my friend is like, well, let's bring some of these back. So I decided that, I was going to go to school and I was going to start using some of these like antique slang words just for the heck of it, which was, again, probably even more amplified by the fact that I was the corny white kid, and I just started using the word spiffy more than anything, and the other kids at school just started calling me Mr. Spiffy, and I was like, I'll take it. That works. I didn't have a nickname before that. I have one now. I'll take it.
Wow. So with music, and I know music is one of those things that is universal, and it crosses over. Where's the furthest place that have you been so far?
Europe. I was just telling somebody this story yesterday. So I've been privileged to tour Italy and London, and I really wanted to go to Africa. The first tour I got offered to do outside of the U.S. was to Africa, and they called me and they said, "Can you go to Africa?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Do you have your passport?" I said, "I'll get it tomorrow." And they said, "No, if you don't have it right now, we're going to call somebody else." Because I guess I'm assuming a lot of times they call people who will say they'll get it and then they don't. And then now, so I was really disappointed that I didn't get to go to Africa. And so I went out and got my passport right away. And so when the next call came in, which was probably Italy, I was ready. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've been to most of the States, and then I've been across to Europe. But I've yet to, I traveling isn't my first priority, but I do enjoy it. I would love to go to Africa. I would love to go to Asia. I would love to go to Central America. And I'd love to go to Toronto. And again, for me, traveling would mean music. It would mean, getting a tour or a gig in those areas. I don't, so if God says the same, I'll have those opportunities in the future.
So who in the industry would you love to be a part of? Like what group or what artist would you would love to tour with?
So my hero was Prince.
Okay.
And I actually, um, Prince was the only musician that really intimidated me because Prince could play any instrument. He could play it better than you. So there's not like Prince. Okay, I want you to play this. I don't know if that can be played on guitar. Sure, it can. Hand me the guitar, and he can do it. Like there'd be no like if he asks you to play something, he can already play it, and he can play it better than you. So you know, so I got a few calls where I would have had the opportunity to meet and play for Prince, and it's possible he would have hired me. I didn't take those calls because I said, well, I'm going to practice a little more. I'm going to learn his material a little better so that when he calls next time, I'll be ready. Because I said he was the only musician that intimidated me. And then of course he passed away. So that's one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't just go and get the opportunity to play for him and see what happened, and so that's one lesson that if anybody's watching, don't wait for the next time. If you get the opportunity now,
Absolutely.
even get as ready as you can and take the opportunity. Adjacent to Prince, I mentioned Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis earlier. I would love the chance to work with them. And I actually am pretty well connected in the Minneapolis music scene, and so that's a possibility for me. The opportunity hasn't come up yet, but I could force it to happen. I could make some calls and be like, that's not the way stuff's supposed to happen. If it happens, it'll be organically, and it still could happen. I actually had, so for me as a musician, Prince was at the top, and then Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis are right after that because they, came up under him and went on to do in many ways bigger and better things.
Bigger and better, yes.
And then because and then under that is Prince's best rhythm section, which was actually made up by his bass and guitar teacher, who was a guy named Sonny Thompson, and then a drummer named Michael Bland. And after, like, those are the guys that really intimidate me and that I'd love to play with after those. I've actually had the opportunity to work with them. I have a podcast with Michael, and we've done all kinds of sessions together. And Sonny and Michael both still intimidate me greatly to work with, but I've had that opportunity. So that's one thing I got to check off my bucket list. In terms of gospel, the only gospel artist that I love, I've never had the opportunity to work with, and I'm not sure why, it just hasn't been in the cards, is Fred. Fred's my favorite. I've met him. I've talked to him. He probably remembers me. We have, we've been in the same places many times. I get told I look like Fred. Rance Allen used to call me the white Fred Hammond, even when I was skinny. But I've never actually had the opportunity to work with him. And I would love to, if that just so happens to be in the cards, I would still love to do that because he's very much my favorite gospel artist. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. I used to really, really want to work for Lauryn Hill, and I kind of have lost that desire based on the way things have gone. Because you always kind of thought she would go back to the old Lauryn Hill, and she never did. And in many ways, she's turned things around, and she's doing better now than she has been in many years past. But it's not the same. But there was a long time when I really badly wanted to work for her. Nobody else comes immediately to mind. I love John. I love John P. Key, and I've worked for John. I've never actually played for John. I've produced some stuff for John. I've put some things together for John. John knows me well, although I haven't talked to him in years, but I've never actually played on stage with him. Well, I did, but he wasn't singing. He was producing. So it's the thing where either I was playing and he was producing, or I was doing, production type work and he was on stage, but we've never both been on stage together at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to do that. Love Erykah Badu. Would love to work with her. Trying to think of anybody else. That's all that comes to mind immediately.
So what is this infatuation with ceiling fans?
So
No, I have to go there.
I didn't know you knew, but you're more than welcome to. People that are aware, I always get asked the question. So as a child, I was fascinated with things that spun, just like a lot of babies and young children are, and most kids grow out of it, and I kind of did. But I mean, like, if you think about it, like, if you 6-month old, 9-month old, 1-year old, 2-year old kid, if they see something spinning, they're going to watch that thing. And I kind of grew, so when I was really young, I used to love ceiling fans, pinwheels, sprinklers, hubcaps, anything that spun. And I kind of grew out of it. And then I remember being in 4th grade. I was on my bike, and I was biking past a garage sale, and there was a ceiling fan for sale at the garage sale that was the exact same one that used to hang, or still does actually to this day, in the hardware store that my dad used to go to when I was a kid. And I was like, wait a second, it was $10. I said, wait a second, for $10, I can buy the same fan that I remember seeing as a much younger kid in the hardware store. That's really cool. So I went back home. I got my piggy bank. I got $10. I went back. I bought it, put it on my back, and biked home with it. And I started collecting other fans that I remembered from my childhood. And that's what I do to this day. I collect ceiling fans that I remember from my childhood. And I've tried to monetize that as well. I've worked for some ceiling fan manufacturers. I worked for a ceiling fan museum. I've worked for Habitat for Humanity, because my thing about it is, if you're going to work with something, find a way to help other people, find a way to bring some money in, find a way to do more than just, collect the thing. So, everything that I do, I always try to get involved above and beyond, my worldview. But that's how it started, and at the end of the day, that's what it always will be. Is I'm still on the lookout for specific ceiling fans that I remember from my childhood, and that I can collect and then hang in my house or other places.
Wow. Now I would have never thought to put 2 and 2 together. Now on your, I want to say on your social media, it talks about the music, and then it talks about your thing with ceiling fans. And so I was like, okay, what is the infatuation with ceiling fans?
Yeah.
So now I get it.
There are a lot of people out there that collect ceiling fans, and there are a lot of autistic children that are just fascinated with them, well past the age that most other children would be. And so if you look at my YouTube channel, I might have thousands of views on my videos of me playing organ and guitar, but I'll have hundreds of thousands or millions of views on videos of ceiling fans.
Wow.
And that's mostly from autistic kids that
So
rewatched them and
I'm gonna
rewatched them
say
again.
this. I'm actually afraid of ceiling fans. So I would never forget it. There was a Soul Train Awards that happened years ago. And they brought out, we had one, and this cylinder part is real sharp. Where the light bulb is.
Okay.
And so they said, oh my God, LL Cool J is coming out. So I'm jumping around. Yes, yes. And my hand went up, and I sliced my finger. I still have the scar to this day. I sliced my finger open on the fan, the cylinder part, and blood went all on the light bulb. And so anytime, you can ask my husband, anytime that he's too close to the ceiling fans and all this stuff, I'd be like, stop, because I go back to my childhood when I wanted to see LL Cool J and I almost cut my finger off.
Really, I feel like you need to blame LL Cool J for that and not the fan. I feel like he owes you an apology.
So yeah, so that's my thing. And I think my mom said I was supposed to go get stitches, but I didn't. So yeah, I still have that scar.
Yeah, I cut my finger real badly trying to help my dad install a new light fixture in the bathroom, and I had to get 6 stitches. But that wasn't, I can't blame it on the ceiling fan. So,
well, I am. So yeah, we're not gonna get together with the ceiling fans because I'll be like, okay, that's enough. It's too close. Nope, can't do it. Let's see what else. So music again. I'm excited again. Like I said, I love music. I love musicians, those who really can play, and then those who are gifted. There are so many, like a Richard Smallwood. I was in the room when he was on the piano playing. I was like some people just have this gift that's, beyond a book or beyond. They hear notes that I've never heard of. Somebody else that I love to hear, he was on YouTube, I believe. What is this? Is it Corey Henry?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He was playing. What was he playing? And it was an old school gospel song. And he went somewhere, and I was like, and then came back to the end of the song. It's it's not Thank You, Lord. I know for sure it's a Hawkins song. Oh, maybe.
I know probably the most popular video of him on YouTube is playing Wonderful Is Your Name at Melvin Crispell's funeral.
This was something recently. He played, and he was talking like, it's time for me to go back in the studio. And I just saw it like the other day. And I can't remember. But he played it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I was at the light, like, I don't want to go. Y'all gonna beat the horn at me because this person, oh yeah, and the other one, I want to say his name, Jaden Arnold. He plays the keys.
If that's his name, I don't know him. I'm gonna look him up.
I want to say it's Jaden, Jaydeen Arnold. He played, we first saw him on social media as a little kid, playing the keys or the Hammond.
Okay, yeah, you got the name right. I've never seen him before. Oh, I've definitely seen him when he was a little kid. Yeah,
when he was little, but he's older now. And I'm like, how in the world?
Well, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, some people just have a genuine God-given gift, and that's all that it is, and there's no other way to explain it, you know. I was talking about Michael Bland earlier. He will talk about how he believes that Sonny Thompson, who I mentioned earlier, and Stevie Wonder, Corey Henry, and he's got a few other people he'll name. He thinks that they came to Earth from another planet on a pod, because there's no way that they're from here. Like they all had to come from the same other planet.
And if I'm not mistaken, all of them have what, perfect pitch? Like they could.
I will have to ask. I don't know if Sonny has perfect pitch. I know Michael does. I don't know if Corey does. I haven't talked to Corey in a long time.
The chords this man comes up like on the fly, like how, where you had to come from somewhere else. Had to.
Yeah. It's, yeah. I mean, I like how I play, but I see myself in many ways as a basic player. I don't try to deviate too far. Like I'll stretch it a little bit, but to me, everything I play still stays grounded in what the original is, and sometimes, yeah, some of these guys like Corey, the reharmonizations that they do, I'll just be like, how did you hear that? Because
yes,
it doesn't seem anything like the original chord or melody, but it fits perfectly.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think a lot of it too is just studying jazz, because there's a lot of the old jazz players that did the same thing. If you think about Coltrane, if you think about Miles Davis, you think about Art Tatum, or even what's the guy that came after Art Tatum? Johnny Costa, the piano player for Mr. Rogers. Like, if you ever have time to just go down a YouTube rabbit hole of just musical creativity you wouldn't expect, listen to every version of the Mr. Rogers theme that you can find, because Johnny Costa never played it the same way twice.
Wow.
When Fred Rogers hired him, he said, I want to play jazz. I don't want to dumb it down for children. And Fred Rogers said, that's fine. Children can appreciate good music. And so every time he plays it, he never plays it the same way twice. He always reharmonizes or changes something. And I remember one of the reasons I bring that up is that's something I should have brought up before in talking about my childhood influences, because you don't think about that being an influence on musicians. But if you go back and listen to how complex the music was on that show, it's probably where a lot of us got some of our early ideas of non-standard chord structure and stuff like that, because he would take the very standard chord progressions that Fred would write, and then again he would add and subtract and change, and it would be different every time. And so I think that kind of got absorbed by a lot of us that watched that growing up without realizing it.
So I got one question before we get off, because
Okay.
I got another show after this.
Oh wow, okay.
Is there one song that like stumped you that you could not figure out?
I have a bucket list of songs that I want to sit down. Like, some music I can listen to it and then I can sit down and I can play it. And some songs I have to like sit down and practice. But then there's some that really I have to like take the time to figure out and learn it piece by piece and really put the time in. And I can do it for just about anything, but it takes a lot of time. So I can really only justify it if it's a song I have to learn for something. And so there are 3 songs that I want to do that, but they're complex enough that I would actually need to sit down and learn them and work them out. And I've never had a reason to, other than that I keep saying one day I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. One is Caught Up in the Rapture by James Hall, written by Melvin Crispell. Okay. There's just so many insane. You want to talk about where Corey Henry got it from? Because he sat under James and Melvin and Butch Hayward and all those Brooklyn guys. He sat under them as a kid and watched them and absorbed all that. and Caught Up in the Rapture is just a classic influence of all that Brooklyn gospel reharmonization. It's just trying to actually sit down and play it is insanity. The live version of Diamonds and Pearls, not the record version, where there's a whole segue in between, where it changes keys and it goes to a bunch of other stuff and it comes back to the song. Again, it's not super complicated, but it's something I would have to sit down with in order to learn and retain it. And then the other one is Up Above My Head by Kirk Franklin on God's Property, which is probably, again, that's probably the simplest of the 3, but it's complex enough that I have not, like, if you just asked me to play it right now, I couldn't. And I'd have to go listen to it. I'd have to say, okay, wait a second, what chord does it go to here? And it would take me some time, and I just have never had an excuse to sit down and
watch.
But those 3 songs are on my bucket list of like whenever I have time, and they've been on there for years. For years, I've been telling myself, when I have time that I want to just sit down and really study a piece of music and learn it note for note, those are the 3 that for sure I'm going to do. And like I said, none of them are complex to the point where, I mean, anybody who's listening to this, if you can play, and if you've had to learn those songs, you probably learned them, and you probably learned them correctly. It's just having the reason and the time to do it, and actually sit down and learning them, not just a version of it, but learning it note for note like the record.
Well, again, thank you. I have enjoyed you. Again, keep up the good work. Keep pushing. Again, hopefully your bucket list will be eventually, next time we talk, a conversation that I got it done. Again, thank you for taking the time this evening to talk with us. Tell them how to get in touch with you one more time before we leave.
DSpiffy.com has links to everywhere else. Otherwise, it's DSpiffy on TikTok, DSpiffy on Instagram, DSpiffy on Twitter. Dan Spiffy Neuman on Facebook, including Dan Spiffy Neuman personal page, Dan Spiffy Neuman musician, and Dan Spiffy Neuman ceiling fans, as well as Musipolitics on Facebook, YouTube, and Anchor Podcasts. I hope you'll have me back sometime. And now I'll remember that you're in the East Coast, because I didn't even know that you were in Detroit. Like I didn't know anything other than what you told me in the emails about you, but I wanted to have the opportunity to do it, but I figured I'd learn more about you, during the show. Now that I know that you're from Detroit and that I know you because of Red, I will remember that you are East Coast time. So next time I'll be early.
No problem. So again, thank you again for coming in tonight. And again, we will definitely keep in touch, and enjoy the rest of your evening, okay?
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.